Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. And that's where I come in, because I love to tell those stories. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together, there's no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. Happy to connect you with Alan over there. My guest today is a guy that I've gotten to know over the last few years. He's become a friend. He's become someone whose brain I can pick in terms of advice. He's someone that I always learn from, and someone that I now spend time with virtually, really, for the most part, in our Heartland Heroes peer group led by Steve Johns. And I've had other guests from that peer group on here, most recently Bill Zahner, the CEO and president of Zahner. And we have so many amazing people in this group. I think the common theme, and Steve Johns gets so much credit for this, is bringing in good people. Somehow they brought me in on that one too, but bringing in good people who have just amazing characteristics. They work hard. They're often under the radar. And they're the type of people that you want to do business with. They're the type of people that make you better in life at whatever you do. And Randy Powell is one of those. And so I'm so excited right now to bring into the show a small business owner. We can talk about that, but a longtime executive in the greater world of companies and corporations. He was with SPX for many, many years, and now into the world of owning a printing company. And we'll talk about that and much more. Randy, how are you?
Great. How about you?
I'm doing well. I don't know if you ever thought you'd own a printing company, did you?
No, that wasn't what I was looking for necessarily. It was more embarking on that journey to leave the corporate world and go try and buy businesses and start businesses. I met with so many great entrepreneurs around Kansas City and even in my travels around the country that I felt inspired and motivated that at some point in time I wanted to go do it. I wanted to go prove I could do that. And that was just the first one that came along and landed in my lap after looking at a number of deals the last couple of years. That one happened. And then COVID hit and things got a little slow, but we're back on the deal trail again now and looking at other opportunities.
It's so interesting because the way you go about, you even said to me before we came on, hey, I don't want to come on promoting and hawking this and that. And that's so your style too. Like, it's so understated. And you have always, I believe, certainly as long as I've known you, been someone that is so comfortable trying to help others and trying to offer advice and mentorship. And sometimes that's just in storytelling too, and sharing inspiration with others. And so I do want to talk a lot about that, but I think it's interesting too. You go from 16, 17 years of president at SPX Cooling Technologies, and now suddenly a small business owner and looking for other opportunities too. How different have those worlds been?
I learned very quickly all I didn't know, because when you're in a big company, you've got a finance department and a legal department and an HR department. And then when you go out on your own, you are a department of one to some degree as the leader. And I remember closing on that first transaction, and I was in there talking to the people, and they said, "When are you going to do payroll?" And I said, "I don't know anything about doing payroll. I've never done payroll in my life. How do checks just show up?" It just came in, money just came in my bank all those years. And so you learn about all those things that every entrepreneur and business owner learns as they go out and grow their company. And when you're in a corporate environment, you don't necessarily know how all of those things happen. You just know that you got good people that make them happen.
Is it energizing though to really dig deeper into those worlds that you were around but didn't have to know as much about before?
Oh, it's cool. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I learned more in the first month than probably I had learned in 3 or 4 years, where you kind of get in a rhythm and you're doing your job and you're leading a team, but you aren't necessarily fully familiar with all of the nuts and bolts that go on in every aspect of the organization. You just can't be when you're running a big organization and you've got, hundreds of employees. You trust them and their leaders to do their job, and you try to build a team where you have that confidence that they can and that all the right things are happening. When you get into a smaller organization like that, you start to learn a lot of those details of what actually makes work happen. And it's really been fascinating.
I knew it would be, because you're a guy that's always thinking. I know that sounds obvious. We're all always thinking, but I know that you're always looking for more. You're looking for the meaning in things. And then you often turn that around and use that in storytelling to help others. So I do want to talk about lessons in leadership and the amazing guests that you have on this weekly Zoom call in a moment. But let's go back first a little bit. And a young Randy Powell, tell me about growing up. I know that you've worked so hard to accomplish everything in life, amazing family, and you've really paid your dues and earned every bit of it. But what was life like growing up? And I know with a little bit of that twang in there, you didn't grow up here in the Kansas City area.
No, there's a bit of Southern in that background, moving about the South and living in a number of different states as my family moved about. And you learn something from those moves of that you learn to meet people in new environments, which actually paid off great when you get into a corporate role and you are traveling the country and traveling the world and doing business with people. You're not in your bubble anymore. You're always going to be engaging with new people in new places and hopefully learning about them and building relationships with them that help you both in business and personally. And somewhere along the way that developed in me that fascination with just meeting people and learning about their story and what could I do with that story? How could I come back and apply that to my life?
So were you a storyteller, so to speak, as a kid? I mean, was that something that you always enjoyed doing, or were you inquiring the way a storyteller does with curiosity?
I don't remember doing that so much as a kid. I would say it probably developed over time, particularly when I made the transition. My early career was in accounting, and that career, it's hard for me to remember that I even did that then. I must have been really lousy at it, but I know it was very disciplined, and you didn't necessarily have to be a great leader. You just had to be technically excellent. I just needed to know the rules, and I could do that job really well. Yeah, I could understand the guidance. I could understand, the accounting literature, and I could apply it to a situation, and it is what it is. And it wasn't necessarily motivational. It is what it is. These are the rules, so let's do this way. And then when I moved out of that role and started this journey towards leading a company, I had a segment president that said, "I want you to leave accounting and go run construction." And I said, "That's crazy. I don't know what I'm doing." And he said, "Well, you have proven that you know how to build a team. So just go build a team. Just go do that." And immediately I was where technical skills didn't matter anymore. My whole job was going to be, how do I motivate and inspire people to do more, maybe do more than they ever imagined, and come together and do great things. And I found that I could do that by taking stories that I gathered from people in my travels, and I'd meet people and I'd learn something from them, and I'd come back and I'd tell those stories at work, and they resonated. You're an awesome storyteller, and the stories resonate with people because now they can visualize, they can see concepts in real life.
There's no question about it. And I think that whatever level of storyteller you are, we are all storytellers. And okay, some are better than others, some are worse than others, but there's still a power in that, no matter who you are, I believe. And also that reminder that everyone has a story to tell. It could be the guy on the corner of the street when you pass by and he's looking for money, or he's homeless, or out of work, whatever it is. It could be the highest level CEO. It doesn't make a difference. Everybody has a story to tell. So what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Baseball player. I still do. If you can get me in. But the phone didn't ring off the wall about that. I wasn't a good baseball player, but I loved baseball. And probably a lot of my life between me and my boys, we spent a lot of time with baseball. And it was awesome because, one, you just know all of the lessons you learn in baseball. It's a sport that teaches you about how to deal with adversity and how to motivate yourself through tough days and tough weeks and tough years. And I think both the boys and I learned that along the way, that it's a sport that helps you develop those skills. And it was really great for us to spend that much time together. You spend a lot of time together just in the truck riding the games and in the truck riding the tournaments and things like that. And so that time together was invaluable.
And so you obviously played growing up, but you were moving around a lot too. I mean, was it mostly Florida or Georgia or where were you growing up?
Most of it ended up, my high school years ended up in Florida. And I was horrible, but the coach said, you outwork everybody, and it's sending the wrong message if I kick you off the team, but you're really lousy. But you really outwork everybody. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll take that and maybe use that the rest of my life.
It's funny. I was talking to some executives the other day for the book that I'm working on about Eric Hosmer, who's another product of high school baseball in Florida, maybe a little bit after you and a little bit of a higher level than all the rest of us, by the way. But they said the same thing about him in terms of not talent, but in terms of the work ethic. He says the hardest working guy on the field, and everybody noticed. And so I've got to think that there are a lot of lessons in that, though. I mean, you talk about lessons in baseball and that reminder that when you work hard and you put in that effort and people are watching you, that good things will happen.
Yeah. And that applies pretty much to the rest of your life.
Everything.
You go put that effort in, and it may not be right now. That old saying of you're the right person in the right time. Don't over personalize failure, because right now it just might not have been the right time. You still might be the right person in the right time, and that's still to come. So keep at it. Don't give up.
It's a great message, and one, by the way, that applies to everyone, no matter what you do in life. So I want to talk about lessons in leadership, because in many ways, I mean, the guests that you're bringing on, and I think you probably were desperate at one point and had me on, but I mean, you had Bob Burg, the author of The Go-Giver, on recently, and so many others too. And it's so cool. I mean, it's such a sign of the time during this pandemic that people within your network and around town and outside of town too, for that matter, are jumping in the Zoom call for an hour on a Thursday morning to listen to these guests. Some speak, some of it's informal, some more formal, whatever it is, in Q&A. But you were doing that before, because I would look on your LinkedIn and your social media, and you'd write up these long, beautiful essays about, a military hero or whatever it was. What was the thought process and motivation in sharing these stories? Because I know it helped a lot of your employees along the way.
Yeah, it was a way I could take that ability to tell a story, and the fact that I was blessed with the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people, traveling about the country, doing my job. You meet people in an airport, you meet people on a plane, or you run into people in a restaurant. And I was especially always drawn to, if somebody has a veteran hat on, the boys would be like, okay, there goes dinner. I know Dad's zoning in on the guy with the veteran hat, because if you wore it, I figure you want me to ask about it. And so I would come in and say, hey, tell me where you served. Tell me what you did. I want to hear about your life lessons. And I would pick up those lessons over the years. And I really found those were a great way to come back, and through the writing and speaking at work, I could hopefully inspire people to say, okay, that person went through a really tough time. The stories particularly that I gained from World War II veterans or Holocaust survivors or people that saw the Depression. And we get very caught up in that everything today seems so awful, but throughout the recorded history of mankind, folks have been through things that are awful, and we're tough, and we can take it, and we can do it. And so if you can take those stories and say, hey, here's somebody that went through something tough as well, and they came out the other side, maybe you can too. Maybe you just muster up a little bit more courage to go out and do something great today.
Yeah, it's an amazing perspective, really, and a great reminder to all of us that, look, we're not the only ones going through stuff. Not to minimize it, but to remember that, this has gone on over the course of time. Maybe it just didn't look like a pandemic, but it has always happened. So I would always read these and I think, gosh, this guy has this beautiful writing ability. Like, you were writing everything that maybe I might think about someone, but I couldn't quite put it down in the words that you did too. How I don't know that therapeutic is the right word, but what was that process for you in being able to not so much to tell people, but to be able to write it and put it down? I mean, unless you're the world's greatest writer, I mean, these aren't like 2-minute projects here. I know that they take a lot of thought and they're beautifully crafted. So how did that process feel for you when you were able to share with everyone else and write these beautiful essays?
One, thank you. That's an exaggeration, I think, of my Southern English writing style. That it was beautiful. I probably didn't have any English teachers that would have agreed along the way, but it was me, and so it was probably authentic, and people probably knew me and said, "Okay, that sounds like Randy and his style." Some of them, flowed like that. Like I'd meet somebody and it would turn into an idea, and you couldn't even sleep at night. It's like, okay, I got to write this right now because my head's full of this idea of this story. Sometimes I would go to sleep and I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and it would have turned into a story. And okay, now I got to go write it down. So I'm a lousy sleeper. A lot of this stuff happens at night, when it's quiet and the house is quiet, and just these ideas, turn into something that I want to go capture and write down.
Well, you're not the only one in terms of the sleeping. So sometimes, yes, people get some really good work done in the middle of the night, and there's nothing wrong with that. How about the guests that you've brought in now? I mean, this to me is a pandemic pivot, like so many of us. And now you have this ability in this way of bringing people together virtually. We're all living in that world now. But tell me about that and the response you've had with so many different guests, because people are looking forward to this on a Thursday.
It's been a lot of fun, and I didn't really know where it was going to go when I started. I was used to, as you know, having a lot of breakfasts and lunches, like I got to share with you sometimes before the world closed. And I enjoyed that, being around town and meeting people. If I wasn't traveling, I tried to have breakfast or lunch, with folks around KC regularly every week. Well, then when we all got grounded, I realized how much energy I was deriving from all of that human interaction, and it was gone. And I said, okay, what can I do? We have this new tool called Zoom. I'm just going to invite somebody to speak on a leadership topic like perseverance or innovation or entrepreneurship. And I'll just invite a bunch of people that I know to get on, and we'll just do an interactive, informal kind of Q&A. And we'll try this 2 or 3 weeks and see what happens. And I learn something every week. It's been awesome. The energy that comes out of that. I learned from both the folks that speak and also from the crowd and the questions they ask. It kind of tells you what's going on in people's heads and in people's hearts, and what are the things they're dealing with in their own business life and their own personal life. And I've had overwhelmingly positive response of anybody that I've called and say, hey, I'd like to have you come on the show, because I think people want to share positive stories. They want to be asked. And so so far, really everybody I've asked and said, would you want to come on and spend an hour with these business and community leaders around Kansas City? They've said, sure, that'd be awesome. And they do willingly. And so it's really been exciting to see that.
It's a lot of fun and I dropped off for a bit with baseball, and now suddenly I've resurfaced, and it's just a great way to start the morning and to learn and to hear all these perspectives. So kudos on doing that. And it's the 2020 version, I think, of what you were doing before, and that ability to still network with all those people. Okay, so let's go to the baseball themed questions now, brought to you by Kissick Construction. Trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissickco.com. In this long career of yours, which is still going, what's the biggest home run that you have hit?
We're still in the infancy of this new phase of entrepreneur. So I'll go to my previous role running a large company. And the thing I was the most excited about every day was the team that I built and how cool it was to show up and be with them every day. Once you build a team of people who have a clearly defined purpose and want to wake up every day and be together and go work together towards that purpose. It was exciting to get up every morning and go see these people and be with them. It wasn't a drudgery of work. It was, I hope we get to travel together and go see a customer. I hope we get to go do this project together, because they were such high character people and they believed in what we were trying to do. And I felt like all I did was maybe just kind of help put them together as a team and put them in the spots where they could flourish. And then I could just stand back and watch them run. And that was really powerful to see.
It's funny because I was looking through my notes of one of our meetings from a couple of years ago, and in big words, well, nobody could read my writing anyway, but I believe that I could make out the word in all caps, teamwork. You know, I'd written it down on my iPad, teamwork, and I know that that is so important to you in building those teams. Okay, biggest swing and miss, and what did you learn from it?
You know, there are probably a lot of those, and I've kind of, when I reflect on those in retrospect, I think of, you know, maybe the biggest one. There was a large opportunity, large acquisition that I wanted to do that I thought would be really transformative to the company and make a huge difference. We would pivot into a different product line and expand our reach, and I could look down the future and see this of having a really big impact on the company. But the company didn't see it. Yeah, my bosses didn't see it. Yeah, I couldn't rally support around. So like I could see something clearly that I believed in passionately, but I couldn't get anybody else to see that vision. And so I always kind of look back at those and reflect: is it that they can't see it, or is it I'm not communicating it well? Yeah. So what can I learn from that? Because if I really, really believe it and I really, really want to go there, there was a special on I saw a few months back about the Hells Angels and George Christie, who was the leader of the Hells Angels. And when he chose to leave, they were fragmenting. And he said, if you have a vision of where you want to go and no one's going with you, you're probably not leading. And so I kind of apply that to those situations. Not that you expected to get life lessons from the Hells Angels today, but I thought that was really profound to think about. If I have this clear vision, now I have to soul search and say, am I doing my best job to communicate that vision, or are we just in the wrong circumstances? Maybe this isn't the circumstance where that idea could flourish.
I didn't necessarily expect to hear about the Hells Angels today, but I also knew that I would hear about something that I didn't expect to hear about, because that's the way that your mind works. Again, it's the power of storytelling. And so that was great. I wouldn't have dared try to predict, which is really a good thing, actually. Last baseball themed question, small ball. What are the little things that add up to the big things for you?
Setting yourself, I say I'm setting myself a low bar every day. I want to make a difference to one person every day. So you don't have to go try and change the world. You don't have to go try and change your entire business model. We tend to hold ourselves back and say, well, I don't have an idea that's going to be the next Amazon. I don't have the idea that's going to be the next Google. You know, I want things that are huge, but there's power in just incremental change every day to your business, to make your business a little bit better, to make your relationships just a little bit better, to try and get up and inspire just one person every day to be a little bit better. And if you make that reasonable goal, it becomes achievable. Those are the little bunts, you know, little incremental innovations make your business better. They're squeeze plays to me in baseball, that if I do this right, no one can defend against it. If I execute this little thing right, I have an advantage. And so, small ball is not trying to hit a 3-run home run. It's I'm going to try and get a base, and I'm going to try and get a run, and I'm doing it one at a time. And if we give ourselves those incremental improvements in our life, and those incremental improvements, those incremental opportunities to influence people positively, those things add up. You'll change your world a little at a time.
The old Royals expression from back in 2014 and 15, keep the line moving, and you do so with those hits, and it works out. So, and occasionally you do hit that home run. But as you know, in the baseball world, guys often say, well, I wasn't trying to hit the home run. It just happened. And so that, of course, nowadays, they're all swinging for the fences. That's a whole different discussion. But let me get to my 4 final questions, my baseball-themed questions. And the first one, I was going to ask you, because I like to do this sometimes, what's the scouting report on a young Randy Powell on the baseball field? But I'll spare you that unless you want to go there. I wanted to shift gears a little bit on that, because I know how proud you are of your kids, of your grandkids. I mean, I see you popping up, well, back when my daughter was a little bit younger, at the middle school, shooting the plays, because your daughter-in-law was the the director or the teacher. And so I know how involved you are with all of that, but how much fun is that as a grandparent to now be able to experience all of those activities, the sports or whatever it is that you do now?
I wish I was as smart the first time as I am this time, because you're much wiser second time through. The things that seem so huge when your kids are younger and you're going through, you learn that after a while, those aren't a big deal. Okay, you fell, you got hurt, you're gonna be all right. Let's go. And so get up, dust off, let's run again. So things don't seem nearly as urgent. You have a different perspective on them by having weathered the storm, 3 times with 3 active boys who, ran into stuff, fell over stuff, jumped off stuff. We dealt with a lot of emergency room visits over the years. So you learn that, kids are durable. they're gonna be great.
So that's why they say being a grandparent is so much fun. I thought it was just that you got to send them back at the end of the night, but no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not quite in a hurry to get there yet, but
No.
we're still dealing with those teenagers here. Okay, second question as we round the bases, and this is not a totally fair question because people ask it to me a lot, and then you have to play favorites, and it's hard. But of all the guests now that you've had on Lessons in Leadership, who's been the most interesting or a favorite for you? And look, I'll just preface it so that I don't have to put you on the spot so much. This is not meant to offend any of the guests, including myself. Don't say me, please. That means that you guys were great too. But how about a favorite guest or one that just kind of blew you away?
We've talked enough, that in my heart, I love the stories of folks who served in the military and the lessons they learned. And so, I remember Chris Ford's message just really resonating with me and being very authentic about what it was like for him coming up through the ranks as an officer in Iraq and what he saw and how he chose to lead his troops and motivate his troops. There were just so many lessons there I thought you could apply to any business situation from a story like that.
It's all amazing stuff. So Chris and so many of the others too. I mean, it's everybody walks away learning something, and it might be different things for each person too. Third question as we round the bases, now that you are a full-fledged entrepreneur, what are some pieces of advice you can give to new or young entrepreneurs based on what you're seeing so far? What can you share?
One, have the courage to do it. I talk to a lot of people that have this idea and they just never get to the point where they feel comfortable executing on that idea. There's always a reason to put it off. There's always a bit of that fear of failure that holds you back just a little bit in your mind, that even in your own organization, if you're in a big company, it might be that I could go take on that role or I could go try this new thing, but I might screw it up. I might fail. I might be humiliated. I might have to start over. And to be able to manage that fear and say, failure isn't permanent. Failure is just part of the growing process. And I'm going to go out there and do it. I'm going to take that leap. I think that's a big thing. It's just the courage to push on and do it.
I love that. And then the last question, the walk-off question. I know you're not done. Okay, you've got the printing company now, but I'm guessing you're not just disappearing into retirement. You're not wired that way. So what are the long-term goals for a guy that I suspect will be active for many years?
When I embarked on this journey, it was how could I buy businesses and set people up to build new teams where I could take all those things that I've tried before, but now do it where it builds a bit of a legacy that this business has a little bit of Randy Powell baked in the DNA, and it will adopt some of those same things I've seen work before and hopefully serve their customers, create jobs, have an impact on the community. So I continue to look at that. And then I've got really intrigued by the idea of this Lessons in Leadership and how can I keep using that to expand its reach and positively influence people when we're dealing with these times of uncertainty, these times of, where folks really are struggling, with, we're not built and wired to be apart like this, and we're not built and wired to live in fear. And so what can I do with this to help inspire people to say it's going to be okay? We're pretty tough. We're going to make it through this.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. for anyone that wants to get a hold of Randy, you can search for him on LinkedIn. You'll find him there. He is the owner of Heartland Print and Design. That has been the case for the last 10 months or so, and full-fledged entrepreneur now. Much more coming. Longtime executive and former president of SPX Cooling Technologies, and lessons in leadership. I'd encourage everyone to connect with him just to be able to get some of these pearls of wisdom that he shares so often with his guests. And I know I'm so proud to be a member of the Heartland Heroes with you and such an amazing collection of people, but also want to thank you for your friendship and for so much of the advice that you have given me along the way in my journey. So Randy, thanks for spending the time today. I always love the conversation, whether it's on air like this or off it. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend.
It's awesome to be together with you, Joel.
All right. Randy Powell is one of the truly good guys out there. So really appreciate him joining the show. Quick shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissa Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they demand and frankly are worthy of more than the status quo, and they need a local partner who understands their business. Enterprise Bank and Trust. There's no stopping you. Together, there's no stopping you. So that's going to do it for another episode of Rounding the Bases presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. You can reach me at joelgoldbergmedia.com. Hope to catch you next time.